My name is Mark Andrew De Jesus, and Bustin Boards has been under my feet for about 10 years now. When I started posting on media, it was back in like 2018. I had a friend, his name was Kelvin Alberto, and he was an artist himself. His goal and message within his art was to be yourself, and he would always push me to post. I remember him like telling me, like, he's like, you got to post. You don't understand the amount of opportunity that we have when it comes to social media. And at the time, I think he was right. I mean, look at where we are nowadays. So many people use social media as a platform. That's what he really taught me. Like, hey, like, use this as a platform. Go for it. Be yourself. Grow into the individual you want to be. Get into filming. Get into technology. That's how you could be a creative. And he was so inspiring. He was really the one to give me the first push ever into delving into my creativity. Because at the time, I didn't really know what to do. That's when I had just dropped out of college. And I knew that I basically dropped my dream to be a stage actor. At first, he told me, listen, do photography. It doesn't matter how you do it or where you do it. Just do it and post it. Do it from the heart. I think we all had the same job. I forgot to mention I worked at the Central Park Zoo. I was a photographer. People would come into the zoo and I would be like, hey, come on down, grab your family photo. And it was super like cheesy and corporate. But I had another friend, his name was Chris Sanchez, and he was really into like getting into filming. I think Kelvin was the one who inspired the both of us to like just go at it. And Christopher had a bunch of different camera setups, lights, gimbals. We would all meet up at Kelvin's house and just try to do a podcast or film interviews. And eventually me and Kelvin came up with the idea. And that's when I finally stuck to taking photos of my board and tagging Bustin. And I wanted to make this Bustin Boards collab with Kelvin Draws. That project, I think, came out really good. That's when Kelvin gave me the Nikon D3200. It was his. I didn't buy that camera. He just gave it to me. We went into his house and we just made this really cool video together. Honestly, I think that's one of my best collab videos I've ever did. It looks so official. I was using Adobe Premiere Pro because at the time I was in BMCC. I had a student discount to use that program for my classes. Eventually, after we did that, Kelvin kept pushing me. He told me, hey, just keep posting. Keep being creative. Do it. I was taking a bunch of photos of NYC visuals at first, and that's when I ran into ONeal Ellerby and Ricardo Rivera when it came to skating Bustin Boards. He was working with Bustin at the time. I believe he had like a deal with them to grab as many clips from NYC as possible and deliver content for Bustin Boards. When I heard that, I was so interested. That's when I started meeting the Bustin Boards crew. When I would hang out with them and ONeal was there, I would see firsthand them trying to hit up spots on the street to grab films of people doing tricks on these longboards, like literally on these huge boards here. It blew my mind, just like it blows anyone else's mind seeing me do a trick on this. How do you pop that high? How are you not scared of falling from that height? It was very inspiring, and not only did I know I wanted to be just like the skaters that ONeal was filming, but I wanted to be just like ONeal, making these clips, getting this content. That was my inspiration. And it's all thanks to Kelvin Draws and ONeal Ellerby. Eventually, I started going to a lot of longboard meetups in Central Park. There were like longboard races, the annual Broadway Bomb. And that's when I really saw for the first time how many people there were rocking these longboards. And I was finally introduced to this skating community that either had the same vision as me or just wanted to have fun. I also realized that there was a longboard shop in the city. It's no longer here. They took it down. I guess rent got too high in the city, and it's a dang shame. The shop was called the Longboard Loft. It was on like Delancey or Essex Street. Not that exact intersection, but around there, off the J and M train. And I only went there about like 2 times ever. But I remember the first time I walked into that longboard shop, I was astonished. I felt like I was walking into a different world. I had never seen so many longboards, different shapes, different sizes. I was super curious of, why is this board so long? What makes a difference between this shape and that shape? That's when I really knew that I was really interested in skating another board or getting another board. I would beg my parents like, oh, can I get one of these one day? And they're like, oh, well, that's a lot of money, do better in school. How about you finish your homework assignments? But all I really wanted to do was get better at commuting on my Yo-Face and hang out with these people and become part of the community. Eventually, Bustin Boards opened their own shop in Williamsburg. It was on Grand Street in Havemeyer. I remember the first time I walked in there, it was like going to a toy store for the first time. I was so excited. I was like, no way is there a Bustin Boards shop here. I want to be here all the time. Now looking at it from my perspective, now being 26, I'm like, well, it wasn't that big a deal, but being a kid, it meant everything to me that I finally had a skate shop that meant a lot to me. The first few times I went in there was with my middle school, high school friends. We went with one of my friend's father. His name was Elvis Jimenez. And I think it was like the second time we went in, I was geeking out for the new stock they had brought in. I think that's when Bustin was doing like their bamboo edition boards. I looked at all of them and I was like, wow, I would love to try a Dansu, but that's so big. Elvis looked at me, he was like, you want a board? And I was like, well, yeah, I want a board, but what are you saying? He was like, you want a board? I was speechless. And he was like, go pick a board. Go pick a board. I feel it right now. Like my face was like this. I was like, no way are you gonna buy me a board right now. I ended up going for the Mini Maestro Bamboo edition, and that was going to be my official push board. I went for a drop carve board because I wanted a push board. I only had that Yo-Face and I would always fall on it. I felt like I wasn't as fast as I could be, so the Mini Maestro was a perfect fit for me. Plus I was a little shorter from the size I am now, obviously. I still have that board under my bed. It does have life in it, but I just choose not to use it because I'm taller. I love the Shrike now. And once I got that Mini Maestro, I knew, all right, this is it. I could catch up and follow my friends because I was super slow at pushing. I was super scared of falling. I didn't know how to skate on the streets. Meanwhile, all the people I was hanging out with, they were super fast on their board. I remember being like left behind 2 blocks every time, and everyone's like, Mark, hurry up. When you start skating with a group of friends, that always happens when you start skating in the first place. You bail off your board, you start walking on the sidewalk because you don't want to like get hit by a car, or you don't want to hit a crack and fall, and you get scared because a car is coming or a bicyclist comes right next to you. It is very scary, it is very dangerous, and it took me quite some time to really get comfortable and even get the leg strength to keep up with all my friends at the time.